Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Ancluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and for this one I'm joined by Sinéad Farrell from the 42. We are going to run through the Allianz Football League predictions, our official predictions for 2024. We have divisions 1, 2, 3 and 4 to run through. The format that we're going to do is we're going to list it as 8-1 across the 4 divisions, and then we're going to give each other's 8-1 and then debate them a little bit and question each other's decisions a little bit as well on certain topics. But yeah, it's going to be pretty fun to get into. Sinead, we're here on the 23rd as we record this. League kicks off on the weekend. Looking forward to it?
Yeah, massively. I think that it'll have a job trying to top the dramatics of last weekend, and I don't think that we're going to see too many fireworks. I think possibly in Division 1 it's going to be a bit of a slow burner. Because of the split season and the nature of it, there's a temptation there for managers to sort of de-emphasize the leagues a small bit and preserve their lads for the championship. You see Kerry are resting the Clifford brothers for the first round. I'm not sure how long they're going to keep them off, but I think they're only kind of back running at this stage. Seems like they're being just sort of weaned back in, which is probably no harm. They had a long season last year with kind of Foss's season bleeding into Kerry's. And I think they probably did need a bit of a break, and they seem like they're kind of getting that now. And actually, I was just reading, Colin Keys had a good piece there today, listing out like the couple of teams that might have to consider whether getting to a league final will be the best thing for them. Like Mayo and Galway both have to travel for their Connacht openers. Would a league final just before that be the best thing logistically? There's a lot of things to manage with a split season. It's so condensed. The games are so bang, bang, bang. I think Monaghan are playing Cavan in the Ulster Championship. Maybe getting to a league final mightn't be the best thing to aim for there either. Now that still leaves like the likes of Dublin and Kerry to battle it out for Division 1. But I think Division 2 is going to be where it could be very hot, because you have Donegal and Armagh in there. And I'd say Jim McGuinness in his first year back won't even want to hear the words Tailteann Cup. I saw, quotes from him today, willing to lie down in front of traffic for the Ulster Championship, very defensive of it. And he's, had a bullish start to his return in his second campaign as manager, with the controversy around the ban over the alleged, fielding of an ineligible player, then that getting overturned. There's there's a spotlight on him already, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do with Donegal. They really struggled, I think, in the aftermath of Michael Murphy retiring, and having him come back now could really reinvigorate things. Armagh obviously going down, they will be going to get straight back up to Division 1 as well. And also another thing that Colm Keys pointed out, in Munster, there's a potential pathway for, I think, Clare, Waterford and Tipperary, one of those three, to get to a Munster final, because Cork and Kerry could be playing in the semi-final. So that's a provincial finalist there. You could have another kind of a Roscommon or Sligo scenario there, like maybe expect them to get to the Sam Maguire competition last year. So that's one slot that could go, making Division 2 really interesting. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the fireworks this year. But again, I think it's going to, you might see a little bit of a slow burn. Like say Meath now, they're already in the Sam Maguire. Maybe they might take the league to sort of taper in and maybe pace themselves a little bit. Definitely interesting things to watch out for. But I would also be looking out for that possible distilling down of the league, because of having to try and protect players for the championship. I know Sean Kelly was speaking there to the media recently. He obviously had injuries last year and he still has them. I don't think he's played any Sigerson Cup football. That's something like that Galway have suffered, and maybe other teams are starting to look at that as well and see, do we need to approach the season differently?
Well, that's it. And like, especially when we talk about Division 1, Division 1 is the hardest division to predict, because it's a question of who's actually going to take it seriously, who's actually going to put their all into Division 1 to try and win it. Because you looked at Mayo there, for example, they won Division 1 last year, beaten by Roscommon the next week. Like, who wants to queue up to do that? And because when you win the league, it's very quickly ruled out by losing the next week. So with that being said, the Ancluiche Division 1 official predictions for 2024. So I'll give my 8 first, and then I'll ask you to give your 8. From 8 to 1, who's going to win? Now, I've done some research. I've had a look. Here's my official predictions for Division 1 for 2024. And remember, this is speaking before the league kicks off. I've looked at the fixtures. I've looked at how seriously I think everybody's going to take it. And this is what I think will happen. So, number 8, to go down bottom, I've gone with Tyrone. I just think there's Niall Sludden, Rona Mack, a lot of key players leaving. Doesn't look like the happiest camp in the world. I could see them potentially struggling. Second bottom, I've gone Roscommon. I just think second season syndrome might kick in heavy with Davy Burke. Maybe the loss of players like Kieran Murta and everything like that. Like, he'd be a massive blow, him being gone. And then some of the Bridget's lads as well probably won't be at 100% for the opening round of the league, etc. So Brian Stack, Ben O'Carroll, like, they could lose a couple at the start and then struggle from there. Sixth, I've gone with Monaghan. I think they will survive again. They always seem to. Rory Began, of course, won't be as available as usual. And then on top of that, like, how fit will some of their players be? Kieran Hughes obviously gone as well, but I do think they'll still survive. I've gone with Mayo in fifth. I don't think Mayo will go as, pedal to the metal as they did last year for it, but I've gone Mayo fifth. Kerry, I'll go fourth. So I think Kerry not starting the Cliffords in the first games, I don't think they're going to take it as seriously as they have. I mean, Jack O'Connor pretty much said last year that he doesn't take the league seriously in an after-game interview. So yeah, Kerry number 4. I just think because of the Cliffords being gone, they're not taking it as seriously. Derry number 3. Now, like, obviously Mickey Hart's first year, I think he'll want to make a bit of a splash. They won the McKenna Cup, so you can't tell me that they're not taking title seriously. The Glen boys, I think he'll give them a bit of a rest. I don't think he'll be as strict as Gallagher was with them last year, bringing Glass back in 4 days after losing to Crokes, pretty much. Second, I've gone with Galway. Galway, I think, will be determined to make a statement after a very disappointing season last year. I think they'll want to send out a statement of intent. And number 1, I've gone with Dublin. Now, I know that is bias, but let me explain why. Out of all those teams, I think we can all agree that Dublin have, probably the least to worry about in terms of getting caught in a provincial game immediately after a potential league final. So I do think Dublin will want to make a splash on returning to Division 1. I think they could do that by winning the league.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid rundown. I think I would agree with you on Tyrone. I think, the losses, I think they could be in a little bit of trouble this year. Now, they're kind of a residential Division 1 team. They don't tend to drop, you could be right. Roscommon, I don't know if I go with Roscommon second. I think Roscommon have done enough now to prove they're a good Division 1 team. I know you mentioned the Bridget's lads, and they'll obviously be crestfallen over. They basically handed it to Glen, and especially when they went into that game with nobody thinking they would win. And I know a lot of them said about their stature, their small team. Glen were expected to use their experience from the previous year and muscle them out. And I thought Bridget's did brilliantly. I think Glen were very fortunate to win, and Bridget's did a lot to help them. Like, I know Conor Glass's goal was brilliant, but Bridget's were caught napping for that goal. And then they got a big, boost from that. Like that, I think it was just after that Glass had that big, massive leap where he made the biggest jump at that stage of the game with all the lactic acid in his legs. I don't know if I've ever seen a player jump that high, but that was the turning point. Had they not gotten that, we'd be having a conversation about, is Conor Glass tired? Did Derry mismanage him last year? We would be completely restructuring this. We'd be talking about maybe the Bridget's lads coming back in and Roscommon maybe pushing on and getting to maybe a Division 1 final. I don't know if I quite say though that I think I'd put Monaghan closer to relegation. I think they're really going to miss Rory Began. He's going to be missing for a good chunk of the league heading to this the NFL recruitment thing, which is very interesting. I watch NFL myself. the position he's going for is basically, for people who maybe don't watch it, for teams that get into what's called field goal range, which is basically like kicking for a free, we'll say, either after you scored a touchdown or you've run out of downs and you're basically kicking at the post. The ball gets hiked out. It's pinned up by someone who holds it down on their finger, and then a player comes in and boots it at the post. I think Rory could make a big impact there. He has a colossal boot. We've seen it already in Gaelic football, and like from the videos I've seen, like I saw a video come up on my TikTok or something of Rory basically pitching himself. Like, he's not going there just for the experience. I think this is something he's really targeting. And that would be a huge loss to Monaghan. He's such a versatile player. He's not just a goalie. He's like kind of like a quarterback. He comes up the pitch. He can score from distance. He can score from play. I've seen him score the odd, but he can kick from his hands in the middle of a game. That's a massive loss. I would nearly put them, and they were close to relegation last year.
Yeah,
I think, and you mentioned there Kieran Hughes, although Rory Begum is still a bigger loss. Huge. I don't know how they're going to replace him for the league, and I don't know what will happen if he does get picked. Preseason wouldn't be too far away in the NFL, and if he's a brand new guy, whoever might take him, they might want him out there pretty soon. He might not be. I have no idea, but he might not be available for any part of this season, which would be massive for Monaghan. And even just the hangover of last year, again coming up short, coming so close against Dublin, that might carry on into this year. I would probably put Tyrone Monaghan 8-7. I would put, maybe I might just write those down. I put maybe Roscommon. Okay, I might say Roscommon then at 6. Like maybe the Bridget lads coming back in. I know Ben O'Carroll had a great start to the league last year, but he made a couple of, I thought he lacked a bit of game intelligence in the game against Glen. I know in the second half he got blocked down. There was a guy inside. I was watching it and I was like, chip it in. And he tried to carry it on and ended up, a turnover. He got another turnover, ball played into him, and he kind of got muscled out over the ball, and then he kind of fell and committed a free. The goal chance in the first minute. This has been a bit harsh now, but because I hold him to a high standard. I think he can do very well for Roscommon.
Really?
But I presume they're going to get rested for a little bit. So the first couple of rounds of the league could be tough for them. Now it's Tyrone. They're playing Tyrone again in the first round. They played Tyrone, I think, in the first round last year as well. So they're two teams that are not, who might be a little bit of a precarious position. So if Roscommon can get through that without the Bridget's lads and maybe just hold the tide for a little while and then get those lads back in, the likes of Brian Stack as well, I'm sure they're very disappointed from that, just with the manner of it when they were on the cusp of it and then just didn't finish it out. I might put them in at 6. Like I said, I think Mayo at 5, yeah, I'd agree with you there. And I think Galway might be 4. I don't think they're going to. I think Mayo and Galway might be thinking about Connacht. Although Mayo would beat New York. I know New York had a great Connacht win last year over Leitrim. I don't think they're not going to do that to Mayo. Yeah. I don't think. Without being disrespectful, I don't think so. But that's a big trip. There's a lot of logistics involved. They need to get past that and move on from that. And then Galway have to go to London. London beat Mayo in the FBD League. I had an interview with their manager, Michael Maher. That's a team that's building, and they're building their kind of the non-Irish, the diaspora that come over and play football over there. They're starting to really build a base of the London-born kind of people who come from families that might have moved over to London. That's what they're still starting to really expand on that. So Galway should go over to London feeling a little bit wary. So I don't know if a league final so close before that would be the best thing for them. Like you said, I think this could be a make or break season for Galway within the Pádraig Joyce era. He's into his 4th season, I think, in charge. They wouldn't have been happy. I know Joyce was quite bullish last year the way it went. They could have gone straight through to the quarterfinals. Didn't get that result against Armagh. Ended up playing against Mayo. Sean Kelly wasn't right, and he's talked about it recently that he basically played through an injury. And I'd say, he didn't do anything that another player in his position wouldn't have done. If they lost, it's win or bust. He kind of had to play, but he wasn't right. So I'd say the overall thing maybe wasn't right last year. Shane Walsh, came in for criticism again. I think it was the Connacht final. He got a bit of stick for not kicking the lights out against Sligo, but I think he had flu for that game. And he'll have a small bit more of a break, obviously, with Culmacud not getting to the final. And even though they didn't maybe play great against Glen, he was the one that came up with big scores. That pass for the goal, do you remember? And then his the goal, the shot that I know he was going for a point, but it ended up as a goal. So I think he'll benefit from a little bit of a break. I know he took a big one last year. I think he went to Australia. I don't think it really worked out overall. And also, they've big players coming back this year. Kieran Malloy back from an ACL, Sean McKern back from a big injury, and Liam Silk is back from working abroad. They're huge guys to reintegrate into the team. And with Kelly being injured at the moment, there's a chance there for McKern to maybe slot back into full back. Could that create a potential to push Kelly further up the field? He can get scores. He has gotten scores. He has a great engine. Could maybe move him into the half back line or possibly even into the forwards. I think he's played in the forwards for Mike Cullen in the past. He's another guy who's really, really versatile. So there's a lot there. There's a lot of potential. I'd be very interested to see how Galway do this year. I think they will look to build some performances in the league, but I don't know if they'd be targeting a league final. I think they could do without that. So that's why I'm going to put them in there for. And then, I think it's going to be a Kerry Dublin final. So I'll just go 1-2. I think Kerry 2. And yeah, I think maybe I agree with you. Dublin will probably look to really reassert their place in Division 1 and pick up a league title there. So I'll put those two in at 1 and 2. And then maybe, Derry in a 3. I think.
Derry in 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So to recap on that, 8 we're both in agreement. We both think it's going to be Tyrone.
Yeah.
7 I've gone Roscommon and you've gone Monaghan. 6 I've gone Monaghan, you've gone Roscommon. So we just switched there. Yeah. 5 we agree on Mayo. 4 I've gone Kerry, you've gone with Galway. 3 we both agree that Derry are going to be there. 2 I've gone with Galway, you're going with Kerry, and we're both in agreement that Dublin will win the league upon their return. So 4 out of 8 we are in complete agreement of, and 4 out of the 8 we disagree on, but not quite massively. I mean, the Roscommon Monaghan one is potato. I mean, which one do you think is going to happen more so than the other one? But to run through it, Tyrone, looking at their season last year, it was very, very disappointing way to finish it up. They got blown away by Kerry. I haven't seen a Tyrone team go out like that in a very, very long time. Then in the off season, Niall Sludden retires, Rona McNamee retires, Mickey Hart goes to Derry. They've had a really rough winter. Look, they do have some positives. Niall Devlin, Sean O'Donnell, good players coming through there. Rory Canavan obviously might settle in for a second year now at the top. I've picked him as my number 1 guy to watch this year. But what are you expecting from Tyrone in this league? It's a league where they really have to answer. They have Roscommon in the first game at Oma. They have to win that game and make a statement. Yeah,
and I think they're blessed to get Roscommon because that's a game that they can win. And with Roscommon going in without the Bridget's lads, I presume they'll have to rest them. I wouldn't expect them to want them back that soon. You mentioned Kieran Murtha is missing this year. He's a big loss to them. Now they got to the FBD League final, but you can't really read too much into that, and Roscommon wouldn't be reading too much into that either. So I think that's a good place to start for them to try and just recover a bit like that. The manner in which they lost to Kerry last year is not the way that they would want to finish the season. So they'll want to start strong. I really don't know what to expect from Tyrone this year. I think the league will kind of reveal all, but that's definitely a good team to be starting against. I wouldn't like to have seen them start their league maybe against Dublin or Kerry. I think that would probably put them in a worse position. I think Roscommon gives them a good chance to just open the lungs and blow off a bit of steam and just kind of settle a bit again after last year.
Yeah, and but it's suiting as well. You're absolutely right when it comes to not knowing what to expect from Tyrone. It's very Tyrone to lose to Roscommon at home and then go to Croke Park and beat Dublin, or go away from home and beat a Kerry or beat a Galway. Like, to go to the very difficult ones and win, and slip up in the games when maybe they should get the result. But I personally think just everything around that camp tells me it might not go too well. Now, second bottom, we have Roscommon or Monaghan. And like we've ran through them, players that they're missing. The Bridges lads probably won't be back. Rory Beggin's away. It's two teams that have had a lot taken off them in the off season, and I think it will be a flip of a coin between the two of them as to who goes down with Tyrone.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I am still going to side with Monaghan. I just don't know how you replace a player like Rory Began. He's too important, and he's too settled into that position. You know, I mean, I don't even know who they will turn to as their stand-in. No, it's a big opportunity for whoever takes it, but they'll be missing him big time. I don't think Roscommon's losses are as big. Kieran Murtha being gone, it's a loss, no doubt, and not being without the Bridget's lads for a while is a difficulty as well. But I think they'll recover from that better than Monaghan. Now, at the same time,
Ultan Harney.
Hmm?
Any word on Ultan Harney?
I don't know.
He was big in Cunningham's last year. He was gone last year. Is he supposed to be back? Or?
I haven't heard anything about him now, but I think, obviously the big one is Kieran Murtha. That's the main one that's been reported, and I actually spoke to him as well. I did an interview with him, and he just wants to kind of put his time into other things. He got married this year. He just wants to give a bit more time to other things in his life. He's given a good few years to Roscommon. Obviously it's a blow, but I think they'll recover more than what Monaghan have to recover from. Now, that being said, like, Monaghan just have a way of clawing over the line in Division 1. Like, last year they were facing the drop and just managed to do enough to stick around and retain it. So maybe I'm not giving that enough credit.
They relegated us the year previous.
Yeah. They just have a knack for it. They just are Division 1 survivors somehow. So maybe I'm not giving that enough credit, and maybe you'll be right, and Monaghan will stay up.
Well, this is the thing, is that I've picked them to go down the last couple of years, and hasn't happened. And then, of course, when they got Mayo in that final game, I just knew. I was like, they're going to do it again. They're going to stay up again. So I've learned my lesson. Maybe it'll be third time unlucky. Maybe I'll pick them to stay up this time, and they'll go down anyway. But fifth place, we both agreed. Mayo, obviously league champions last year. Kevin McStay still there, strapped in for a second season with them. What are you expecting from Mayo?
I think I'm expecting what I expect from them every year. They are, they'll always be there or thereabouts, no matter what. Like, the one thing, like, people might call them bottlers, that they have, like, the big perpetual question every year is this going to be Mayo's year? And they'll never be able to shake that off until they win the All-Ireland. But the one thing they always have is hope. Like, there's absolutely no getting rid of them. I think the last time that Mayo haven't really been some ways involved in the All-Ireland Championship, where they were really off the boil, is probably 2010, when my county Longford beat them in the qualifiers. And that was like, seen as this massive, like, low point to get to. And that's a long time ago. And this is, considering all the All-Ireland final defeats, and I'm sure there's lots of teams make some progress, and then one little knock and they regress entirely. But Mayo just always managed to stay around. Ryan O'Donoghue was on a press call there recently, and he knew the question was coming, but he knew exactly what to say. Like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that we're close. That was the thing that kind of stood out to me when he was talking. Like, I'm not here just because I want to get Mayo gear. Like, I'm here because I believe we are close. Cillian O'Connor was speaking this week. Same thing, you know, they've had some big losses as well. Kevin McLaughlin, Harrison, they've had some big retirements as well. And like last year, it's the same thing. They had to go in with big names gone, and they just managed to do it. They just get on with it, and they always they just, you know, they knocked Galway out last year. Even though Galway would probably have been seen as the stronger team, but they just stick in. They always stick in. And I think they will in the league as well. But I've put them where I've put them because they have to kind of look towards the Connacht Championship. It's coming straight after that. And when you have to travel as far as they do, I think maybe that might discourage them a bit from trying to get to the final. But I don't think they'll get relegated. I think they've just always got the zip. They've always got a fresh, I don't know. They just, there's no beating their faith. They just, at least they believe it, and like if no one else will, they certainly do.
Well, that's it, and they have, you know, talented players coming through that I expect to make a mark in the league this year. Sean Moorhan's definitely one to keep an eye on. Then they've Jack Carney, Jordan Flynn that are going to get even more embedded in the team over the next coming championship as well. And look, Ryan O'Donoghue's thing was interesting because saying that if I didn't think we were good enough, I wouldn't be here. They've looked way off now the last 2 seasons. Kerry held them at arm's length for the entire quarterfinal in 2022, and Dublin mopped the floor with them last year in the quarterfinal. So it's something that they need to rebuild the belief this year now. They really need to, if they're going to go down fighting, like in a championship game. Don't, you know, get held at arm's length like you have the last 2 years, because that's key to building confidence in the project that you have out ahead of you. Now, 4th and 2nd, we've swapped. So we've gone Kerry and Galway in alternating positions. But Kerry, for you obviously mentioned about how the Cliffords are out for the first game. They're not going to be there. Like, that's important that they get some rest. Paddy's obviously succeeded David as captain. There's players to keep an eye on for Kerry in this league that I'll be very interested to see. Obviously, the main one for me is Dylan Gainey. Like, that he's impressed a lot in the preseason competitions. He was really, really good with Dingle as well. And with Paul Gainey getting on a bit, and with nobody really obviously there going to replace him, I'd be very interested to see how Dylan Gainey gets on, and indeed how Kerry look.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really good step to give the Cliffords a bit of a break. The fact that they are just kind of building back into into training now is I think that's a good sign that they are really kind of preserving them for the long road and looking towards, you know, integrating them more as they comes closer to the championship. I think, especially with, you know, you have to remember last year they had a tough year personally. It's that probably didn't get maybe as much attention as it maybe should have, especially when people were reflecting on David's performance in the All-Ireland final, because you know, that's the curse of being an out and out star on your own level, is that you're held to a different standard. And what David did in the final, if it was another player, would have been considered a brilliant game. Because it's David Clifford, it's subpar, or he was quiet. Now, some people try to say that Mick Fitzsimons did a job with him. I don't think that's fair. I think David missed a lot. You know, there was shots that Mick just didn't get a block on, didn't actually touch him. Just David was a bit off, and that's the problem. If you're at that level, that's what people hold you to, and it's not. You know, I mean, you can't expect him to be in this upper stratosphere all the time. And people forget that pass for the Paul Gainey goal was like a masterstroke. But you do one thing wrong when you're him. That's the burden that's on his shoulders all the time. And now perhaps the Kerry management have just decided to give him a little bit of a break. And Fossa not getting as far as they did the previous year, I think probably contributed to that a little bit, that they just needed a bit more time off. But I think now that Dublin are back in Division 1, I think they would really enjoy playing them in the league final, because look, like I mentioned with the Munster Championship, if they get to the Munster final, it's not going to be a big test. you know, the way it's structured. And I think the chance to play a team like Dublin at any point with some silverware on the line would be good for them. That's why I think it will be Kerry and Dublin in the final. Like Kerry Derry in the first round would be a brilliant start. It would be a really good test for both teams. Obviously, Derry going in with Mickey Hart as the manager. I assume he's going to give the Glen lads a bit of a rest. Now, at the same time, I'm not sure. I don't know if you saw that picture of Conor Glass the day after the final, and he's in like cycling garb or run triathlon kind of gear or something. Now, I mean, I'm not judging how somebody decides to celebrate their own All Ireland. I'm not saying he should be out on the beer if he doesn't want to, but I just thought like, wow, he's just after winning an All Ireland, and he's already it just sort of like suggests to me that he's already not, I don't want to say parked it in a disrespectful way, but like is starting to look at what could he do with Derry this year, because there's a lot of promise there. And with Mickey Hart in charge, like he obviously was willing to walk away from Louth in acrimonious circumstances because he can see that Derry are not far off. He can see that back-to-back All-Ireland semi-finals, back-to-back Ulster champions, they are really on fire, and there's a brilliant opportunity there. And now with Glen finally getting over their hurdle, that will put a huge fire in their bellies. Like maybe Mickey Hart might play them on Sunday because, you know, you have the momentum behind them, the adrenaline of winning All Ireland. He might play them. I doubt it. I'd say he'll have more freedom to give them a bit of a rest this year, maybe compared to last year. But I would still say I wouldn't go so far as to say that Derry will have enough to get to a league final. I think it will be Kerry Dublin.
Yeah, but like when you look at the McKenna Cup, Derry's team in that final, McKenna Cup, was a serious team. Shane McGuigan played, Brendan Rodgers played, Garrett McKinless played, Owen McAvoy, like Pádraig McGrogan was in there. Like it was a very strong Derry team that they put out to make sure that they got the win. Like Donegal put out a strong team as well. I actually think Derry will take that game against Kerry in the first round of the league. I just think it's a bad matchup for Kerry, and I think Derry will take it. Galway, on the other hand, you put them fourth. You said they're going to keep one eye on the Connacht Championship. Last year, they really, really fell short of what a lot of people expected them to achieve. This year, what are you expecting from them?
As I said before, I think this is a big make or break, a potentially big make or break year for Galway, just because they are now heading for a fourth season with Pádraig in charge. They've the lads coming back. I think the league will be a great opportunity for them to build their way back into the team and get back up to, like, especially for Malloy, for McKern, for Silk. They've been away. They need to get back up to speed and get back up to inter-county standard. That's a great opportunity for them. But how will that go? That's a big question to answer. And look, Galway Mayo is always a grudge match, whether they're playing in the first round of the league, Connacht final. There's always a needle between them, and because I think they will both do enough to stay up in Division 1. I just don't know. I don't think they will target a league final. I think they'll just do enough to get performances in the legs and kind of build more toward the business side of things further on the championship or further on the season. But I think this is a big year for Galway in the Poor Choice project. And I'd say he's very bullish after the way things went last year. They want to get it right, get it done right. No waiting, or no like putting themselves in a precarious position like they did last year. If they having to go to a preliminary quarterfinal, they will want to go route one.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. And then that brings us to the top. Dublin, we're predicting them to win the league. I do predict them to beat Galway. I'm like slightly regretting not putting Derry second, to be honest. I haven't talked more. I think Derry are going to take the league super serious, more so than most other teams. But I do think Dublin will win the league when all said and done. And like as we said, this is a big year. Like who knows who's going to be sticking around? Who knows if Cluxton will be around? Who knows if Mannion will be sticking around. Like, it's a tough one to know. The Kilmacud Crokes lads, when will they return? Theo Clancy for me is someone that we have to play in the league. I think the main objective for this league for Dublin has to be to get Theo Clancy and get him some minutes, because he looks born to play fullback for Dublin. He's been outstanding in the club championship, not just this year, but last year as well. And yeah, I'm expecting Dublin to take this league super serious, prove that we're a Division 1 team, and the best way to do that is to go and win it.
Yeah, I would say so too. Now that they're back up, they'll want to remind everybody of how strong Dublin can be in the league. They got to the World Cup final, I know, and Longford beat them. I don't think they're going to be too worried about that. I'd say they use that competition to build depth in the team, explore the peripheries of it. They're obviously going into it now on the back of Dean Rock's retirement. Now, Dean Rock wouldn't have been in the central plans for Dublin, as we could see, but he's still he is a loss because of his free take, and maybe he could have still. I was a little bit shocked. I thought he might stick around for one more year and maybe be a player that Desi could turn to last 5-10 minutes of the game to pop a free over the bar or something. But he obviously felt he'd run his race was run and he wanted to step aside. And I'm sure he was a big presence in the dressing room as well. I think we forget how important leadership players can be when they're not playing, what they can do for the lads around them. That is a loss for them going into this year. Will, again, Cluxton, that could be a big question mark. I wouldn't be surprised if they did the same thing they did last year and pretend he's not coming back and then spring him at the last minute, like he's coming out of the forest into the battlefield. So that's a big question of whether or not he's going to play a role in it as well. Winning the All-Ireland last year and reaffirming their place is a big thing for Dublin, and I think they might treat the league the same way. Like, they have the depth in the panel to give the Kilmacud lads a bit more of a break, get through the first. They're playing Monaghan in the first round. I would be worried for Monaghan going into that game. I think Dublin could come away with a big win there.
Yeah, no, I am confident in Dublin this year. I think we could do some good results now in this Division 1 campaign. Remind everybody that we're a Division 1 team. I don't have the same confidence towards the championship, but towards the league, I think we should be aiming to win it, to restake our claim as one of the best sides around in terms of the league. Now, we'll move to Division 2, and we will start to move a bit quicker as we go down to divisions. So, Division 2, we'll give one words for our rankings from 8 to 1, and then break them down afterwards. So, my official Division 2 predictions for 2024. In 8th place, last, I have gone with Fermanagh. 7th, I've gone with Louth. 6th, I've gone with Cavan. 5th, I've gone with Kildare. 4th, I've gone with Meath. 3rd, I've gone with Cork. 2nd, Donegal. 1st, Armagh.
Okay.
No, what have you gone with?
Okay, I think I'm going to go Louth 8 anyway. I think Louth could be in bother this year. The way that Mickey Hart stepped away when they had made great progress with him. And I think if he had stayed, I would be putting them maybe closer to the top. But, the way that the split happened, especially after he had committed to another year and then took the Derry job. Now, he is a manager with big ambitions, and if a team like Derry comes looking for you to take him over and they're on such a high, it was always going to be a hard one for him to turn down. I know Louth aren't happy about it, but you can see why he took the job as well. I think Ger Brennan could be in a bit of bother this year. I think they're going
he's taken over as pilot when the only direction is down. Mickey Hart has brought them as far as I think that group can go. 3rd place in Division 2, Leinster final. Are they going to win Leinster? No. Are they going to win the All-Ireland? No, not really. So what now?
Yeah, I would really struggle. I would really worry for them. 7, I'm going to go for Fermanagh. 6, I am going to go This is a little bit harder. Possibly. See, Meath, I don't know if Meath are going to really target the league because they're already in the Sam Maguire. So they might be able to use this to kind of build up towards the Leinster Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I think they're stronger than Cavan. So I might put Cavan 6. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I think Meath, Cavan on any day, that would be a tight game. I wouldn't really see either one winning it by a lot. And then I might put 5 Meath. 4 Kildare. I would agree. Cork 3, Armagh 2, and Donegal 1.
Yeah, no, I think we're fairly even. So we'll go in twos. I think we have more or less going with there's no Kerry and Galway split in this one anyway, where one of us has picked the second to finish 4th or anything like that. So 8th and 7th we're in agreement that's going to be Louth and Fermanagh to go down.
Yeah.
As we said, Ger Brennan's taken over at a time when the only way is down, really. Fermanagh got promoted from Division 3, yes, but they really looked off the pace in that Division 3 final against Cavan. And it's not a great way to get promoted if you get outclassed in the final by the team that you are going up with. And I haven't seen enough that tells me that Fermanagh are going to be able to beat enough teams to stay up. Louth with them as well. Again, as I said, look, James Califf is retired. Like, they're only a Sam Mulroy or a Kieran Downey injury away from being in big trouble when it comes to their forward line. So, yeah, those two are the two that I think are going to go down.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a pity for Louth. I do feel for them. I think they could have gotten promoted from Division 2, but I think that's probably and Mickey Hart probably did consider that, but that's as far as they can go. You know, getting to a Leinster final is great, but you saw how far away Dublin are. They're just, Leinster is a shut. It's not even an open case. It's a shut case until Dublin start struggling again. And I don't know, maybe Meath are thinking they're going to be the team to do it. And if they try and rest their players and, target that might be their way of approaching it. But I would be shocked if Meath went down. I don't see Meath getting relegated. I don't think Cavan will either, especially when they did get promoted last year. And Cavan are kind of, you just don't know with them. They could do very well this year. They did win the Ulster Championship a few years ago. They always have a doggedness about them. Kildare.
Some big players missing this year, though, for Cavan. Big players. Like Gerald McKinnon's not there.
Yeah.
Thomas Galligan hasn't come back. We're unsure on Raymond Galligan. I don't think Conor Moyne is going to be around. Like, there's some big players that are gone. So I think then with the whole, what is really going on with the management team? Is Eamon Murray going to be leading it? Is Raymond Gallagher going to be leading it? I just think they're not a safe bet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would be interested to see how Galligan does as manager. I can't imagine he's going to do a player manager thing. I think he's already I think he's kind of already ruled that out himself anyway. But it's interesting to see how it goes. And I know you mentioned they're the lads that are gone, but Cavan always have just little nippy players coming through. They're strong. They're a strong footballing county, so I think they'll definitely stay up. Kildare likewise. I think they're always a pretty strong team too. And then Cork I think Cork will be in league final. They're just unlucky. It's Donegal and Armagh in there as well. I think Cork are missing firepower up front. They need to find that. I think they need to use this league to uncover a new forward. I know they have Brian Hurley, and I have a lot of time for Brian Hurley. I think he's a great footballer, but they need more. They need more strength up front.
For me, David Buckley's that man. For me, David Buckley, very impressive in the preseason competitions. He was someone who's been a sharpshooter throughout all the levels. He got injured last year. It was a really bad injury during the league, and that derailed his whole year. But he's back now. He, led the scoring for them as Cork won the McGrath Cup. on penalties against Kerry. He was their top scorer in that final. Like,
Mm.
he's a cracking player. And, like, I think he could absolutely be the forward that they need. Cathal O'Mahony has had that potential for years. Blake Murphy has had that potential for years. So I would actually group Cork and Kildare together. I think that they're very similar. Kildare have the under-20 All-Ireland winners that they have to integrate into their team. Glenn Ryan's the man tasked with doing that. There's a couple of them that are away. James McGrath, Jack Robinson, I think. Both of them. I'm unsure if both of them are around. They still have a hell of a lot of talent. Daniel Flynn, again.
Yeah.
Can
And
he
they
get
were in, and again, they were in the Sam
100%?
Maguire competition last year too, as well.
Yeah.
So they are. Oh yeah, I would have a lot of respect for Kildare. I would rate them. They're always a high ranking team.
Yeah, no, I do think that Cork and Kildare together, I think that's similar. I think Kildare for me would be fifth, Cork would be third, but I think that both of them are in a position where they need to get the next couple of years right. They really do. They need to manage this transition of these quality under 20, under 23 group that they have, and manage the transition of their team into these lads, because these lads could set them up for serious success in the future. Like Kildare and Meath for the last few years now have been beating Dublin at minor level, beating Dublin at under 20 level. It's time to transition that into the senior team, and hopefully for them, that could result in a massive shake-up of the Leinster Championship. And if the result does come, which time will say that surely one day Dublin will lose and Leinster, it will be an earthquake when it happens. Like, first time since 2010. I mean, as I said, Instagram didn't exist the last time Dublin lost to Leinster. But then we've grouped the top two together. Donegal and Armagh were both fairly confident that these are the two that will go up. Personally, I do think that Donegal will win Division 2, but I think Armagh will be desperate to, because Kieran McGeeney since 2015 doesn't have any silverware in the cabinet from since he took over the job. But I do think those are the two that will go up.
Yeah, I would say so. I think McGuinness is, already, that's a big goal for him, is to get them back up to Division 1. And similar to, Dublin, like remind people who the hell Donegal are, kind of thing. They've been a little bit in the wilderness, and he is, I'm sure, has already kind of marked that as a big one for him. And I would be surprised if they didn't. If they start to struggle again like they did last year, then they are in real bother, because if he can't get the best out of them, one thing that he has been marked out for as a manager is how much potential he can unlock in whatever group of players he's involved with. He's a football obsessive, absolute manic, like just the amount of footage that he was pouring over before video analysis became a thing is frightening. Like, it's a food group to him. And I think if anybody is going to pull Donegal out of their funk, it's him. And I think getting to a league final would be a massive part of his master plan for Donegal this year.
Do you think he's in a better place now than he was in 2010, late 2010, when he took over for the first time?
Well, you see, back then, like, I remember, he's talked at the team, the players have talked about it, he's talked about it. Donegal were kind of a nothing team at the time, and they've all spoken about that big meeting they had. They were put off into groups, and they could really feel that this was a different setup under him. But they were kind of coming out of the wilderness a small bit. There wouldn't have been the pressure. There wouldn't have been the, what are you going to do to get them back up there? It was, well, who are you and what are you going to do at all? And he had to, he was really kind of starting on a different footing back then. This time there is pressure, there is expectation, there is, you're the Messiah to kind of revive the Donegal band again. So I think it's too hard to know, because he's been away for a while, with soccer, different things. He's been off the radar a small bit. It's hard to know what Donegal are going to be like. I think that's why I think Division 2 is going to be so intriguing, because we're going to finally see what Jim McGuinness can do at a second bite of the cherry with Donegal.
Yeah, and I just think, like, because I had the interview with Leo McClune. He was on, we were talking about it, and he was saying, yeah, the pressure is what's different this time. Is when he stepped in 2010, nobody still really expected them to go anywhere near as close as they did, or as far as they did, sorry. Like within 2 years, they were the undisputed kings of Ulster and All-Ireland champions. I mean, that was never going to be on the horizon when they got absolutely whipped out by Armagh in the qualifiers in 2010. Was so far away from them, and from that point on, he was just electric with them. But then this time he's coming in, and everybody's saying, you know, well, you're the guy that did it for us last time, do it again. And a lot of people are going to be watching his every result. And then has the game completely evolved from that point? He was a pioneer. He was someone that was streets ahead of anybody else back in 2011. But that is 2011, and we've seen across sports, like the likes of, say, Arsene Wenger with the football, that like Arsenal were untouchable at the start of the 2000s, and by the mid 2010s, he looked completely stuck in the past. And like that's just something that happens across sports, and that's why Jim McGuinness, if he comes back and does it again, he proves that he's on a whole other level. But the reality is, we all know he's going to demand a hell of a lot out of his players. They will run into the ground for him, and he's only going to keep players around that are willing to run into the ground for him. So I think that's another massive thing that we have to note about him. And Armagh, then, they decided narrowly to keep Kieran McGeeney. He's at the helm again for another year. It's stand up or shut up at this point for Armagh. They've had this talent for years. It's time to make something of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've been unlucky. You know, penalties have just been killing them. You know,
if they won all those penalty shootouts, they would have reached back-to-back semi-finals in the Ulster Championship.
Yeah. They're like, I mean, I've always been a big Armagh girl. I've always really liked Armagh since they first won, when they won the All-Ireland in 2002. I really, really liked them. You know, I don't know why I was so drawn to them. They play good football. They're physical side. They still are. But I suppose Ulster football will do that to you. There's not a team in Ulster that hasn't. You have to be physical if you want to survive in that competition. And the players hold Kieran McGeeney so highly. Like there's rarely ever, you know, conflicts really that I know of anyway, big player upheavals or, you know, big disagreements with Kieran. He's a figure of huge respect in Armagh. It's not really a surprise that I think since Collins stepped away, I think Kieran is the longest running inter-county manager, and that's not a feat to be ignored. And it's testament to how well regarded he is in Armagh. And they've just been unlucky with, you know, just with the penalties going the wrong way for them. Like again, they're a team that's always in there or thereabouts. Like Rian O'Neill is an absolute wizard. He's one of the best footballers at the moment. And I think they're going to really love seeing Jim McGuinness back. I think that's actually going to bring out the best in a lot of teams, because it's going to revive all rivalries. It's going to remind teams of what it was like when Donegal were this team that just came up with this game plan. And I hate when people say, "Oh, Jim McGuinness ruined football with the blanket defense thing." It shows up how little you know about football if you think that's what happened. Because what Jim McGuinness did was, he didn't just decide one day, I wonder what would happen if I put 14 players behind the ball, see what that does. Like, it was so much more nuanced than that. Like, he came up with a game plan for a particular set of players. Now, it didn't work in its first iteration, but it did get them to an All-Ireland semi-final, and it did push Dublin to the their absolute wits end, and made that, like, that's where Dublin won their All-Ireland that year, was that they were the team to unlock that. But it was revolutionary. It was, whether people like to see it that way or not is another thing, but he did do it, and it was revolutionary. It got them very close, and then they were, he reinvented the wheel a bit the following year and pushed them over the line. And that's, that is the making of a brilliant, brilliant manager. And I think that's going to push other teams along massively this year.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And look, I think we're fairly in agreement about Division 2 standings and what we think is going to happen. Now we're on to the second half of the league, the final two divisions, and Division 3 official predictions. And again, we'll give the one word 8-1, then briefly group them together, because I feel like this one as well. Actually, this one is fairly tricky. Now. But I'm going to spell out now who I think is going to finish where in this division, because I think it is very difficult to actually put who I think is going to finish where. 8th place, bottom of the table. It feels very difficult to say this. The 8th place, I am actually going to go with... Oh, I don't know. I really don't like saying this, because there's 4 teams, that I think they could finish in any different variants. But I've gone with Antrim 8th, Wicklow 7th, Limerick 6th, Sligo 5th, Offaly 4th, Clare 3rd, Westmeath 2nd, Down 1st, and Down to win the division. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off to say Antrim could be going down. They're a hard county to kind of pin down. I think I'm going to start the other way. I think Westmeath are going to win Division 3. Did very well in the All Ireland series last year. Gave Tyrone a right scare. I think Down. Yeah, I would say the 1-2 Down. Yeah, I would put Down as second. Got to the Tailteann Cup final last year. I think they could be a big team in Division 3. Limerick did get relegated, and awfully are hard to figure out. But then they've got good players coming through.
That's it.
They're an emerging county. They're a team that's on the up. Clare, another bit of an enigma too.
This is what I mean. There's so many teams there that are so... I wouldn't be surprised. I think Down Westmeath, and then from 3 to 8, I wouldn't really be surprised if any of them finished anywhere. Apart from Clare, I do think Clare will finish 3rd.
But I think Offaly are going to finish 3rd. I'm going to put Offaly as 3. I think I'm going to put Sligo as 4. Got to the conference final last year. I know they didn't do terribly well in the All Ireland Championship, but they're another under 20s team.
Yeah,
like players coming through there. I think could be crucial. I think I'm going to put them 4. Clare 5. I think Limerick 6. And then, yeah, I would agree on the Antrim Wicklow. Yeah, 7. Yeah, I would agree. 7 Wicklow, 8 Antrim. Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Okay, so we're in agreement on the 2 to go down, the 4 in the middle of the pack, and the 2 to go up. So let's start with the 2 to go down. Antrim and Wicklow, obviously Andy McEntee and Oisin McConville, both in their second years with their county. Antrim pulled themselves out of the fire with a win against Cavan on the final day. In the final round, they saved themselves. Wicklow obviously promoted from Division 4, but they were beaten by Sligo in that Division 4 final. And then they didn't have a great championship off the back of that as well. So 2 teams that definitely have a battle ahead of them.
Yeah. I think I'm happy enough with the way I've put that out. Like obviously, like Clare and Limerick are the teams that have gone down. But I wouldn't think that like that's going to cause a slide where they end up down in Division 4. I think they'll do enough to stay there. I think I think Down and Westmeath are in a division lower than what they should be. I think they would be. They are more Division 2 sides in my view. And then I think Sligo just need a bit more seasoning. I think they need to integrate those under 20s. I think they need to make more use of those players coming through. McEntee being like having them as a manager, I think that's a huge plus for them as well. I think Division 3 is the biggest unknown for me. I'm not like, I'll say I'm sticking with that, but I'm not quite sure. I think that would be the division I would wait to see how it goes. I think it's hard to predict at this remove what it's going to look like, because I say Limerick and Clare, I would expect them to do pretty well, but
the amount of
maybe
players
they will go down to, maybe they will suffer from last year's hangover and end up down in Division 4.
Yeah, like that's it. Like, I mean, Cavan and Tipperary went straight down to Division 4, haven't got relegated from Division 2. Laois as well had back-to-back relegations a few years ago, so it's not uncommon to do that. Look, I do think that Mark Fitzgerald, the new manager in there, I think he will try to steady the ship as best he can, and they do still have the likes of Emmett McMahon, Aaron Griffin, Dara Bohannon. But the amount of players they're missing 11 players from last year, and it's not just any 11 players. Like, off the top of my head, Owen Cleary, Keelan Sexton, Cathal O'Connor, Kieran Russell, Keane O'Dea. Like, you're rattling off Jamie Malone. You're rattling off Clare's best players. You're not just rattling off any names. You're like Owen Collins, Darren O'Neill. Like, these are all starters, nailed on starters. Pierce Lillis, another one, that they're all gone for the next season. And you're like, what an awful start for Mark Fitzgerald as boss. Don't even have Colin Collins there. Podge Collins is gone too.
He's gone, yeah.
So that's going to be so hard to bounce back from that. But Clare have had a good squad, so I think it's a good chance for them to, burst into the team. Offaly, I group with them. Sligo, I group with them as well, as being teams that are going to be very much in transition. Sligo will be bringing through the likes of Canis Mulligan. I think he's the main one that I'm buzzing to see how he gets on. Offaly, then, you Cormac Egan, first year at senior football. Jack Bryant as well, be keeping a close eye on him. Rory Egan has slotted in beautifully there at right half back. Looking forward to seeing him get on as well. Like, it's going to be interesting. Westmeath and Down, I agree. I think they will go up. Westmeath, very inconsistent. Westmeath are very capable of putting it up to a big team, but then very capable of finishing mid-table in Division 3, as they've done for the last couple of years. It doesn't really make sense. Down, I think, have to go up this year. They had their year where, they had their blessing of, you can transition in Division 3, that's fine. Cavan and Fermanagh go up, nobody's going to get too mad about it. They reached the Tailteann Cup final. They looked in complete control, and then the goal went in, and they never got back into the game after that, as far as I'm concerned. Laverty has to get it right this year. Get up to Division 2 as champions, and I think that they will. Okay, so moving on then to the basement division, moving on to official Division 4 predictions from Moncler. So what I'm going to do again is going to run from 8 back to 1. So my official predictions for Division 4 for 2024. Again, take no offense. This is speaking a few days before the league kicks off. But 8th, I've gone with Waterford. 7th, I've gone with London. 6th, I've gone with Carlow. 5th, I've gone with Tipperary. 4th, I've gone with Wexford. 3rd, I've gone with Leitrim. I've gone for Laois in 2nd place and Longford to top the division and win it. So that's my official predictions. Sinead, what's your official ones?
Okay, I think I'm going to go with Leitrim. I think Leitrim are going to finish at the bottom. I think I'm going to go with Waterford 7, London 6, Wexford 5th, Tipperary 4th, Carlow 3rd, Laois 2nd, and Longford 1st.
Okay, so more or less in agreement. London and Waterford down the bottom for me, similar to yourself, but you've gone Leitrim down the bottom on your one as well. Completely different to me. I have them up in 3rd place. What do you think is going to go so wrong for them over the league in 2024?
I just think they're just a county that just tends to struggle. I just don't see them getting out of Division 4 or getting close to promotion. Like, they finished 5th last year, I think, and they're a county not to be far from ourselves in Longford. They just struggle a bit. They struggle in Connacht. They lost to New York last year. I just wouldn't have too much promise for them now. That's not to insult them, or I'm sure maybe people in Leitrim might take that with an insult, but that's just, no, like, they may totally prove me wrong. And if they do, I'm okay with that. This is just a prediction. And as you say, it's just at the outset of the league, but I just don't think they've done much to really change my mind. But I would very much welcome it if they did. I think London they're building very well. You know, they beat Mayo in the FBD league. Now, I know I said I don't put too much weight on the pre-season leagues, and I don't, but a result like that for them is a huge boost. And getting to, you know, getting on in those kind of competitions actually makes huge progress for them. And they're not just a team now that relies on like the Irish diaspora. They're actually building like London-born players into their main nucleus. So I think they could actually do quite well in the league. Waterford, again, I would put them in the same vein as Leitrim, really. They're just a team that just hasn't, you know.
They have really struggled over the last few years.
Yeah, I just don't know if they're going to have much of a stir in the competition. Wexford are middle of the road there. I would be kind of waiting for, again, I don't think they're going to do too much. I don't think they're going to get promoted. Tipperary got relegated last year, were decimated by losses in the squad. Conor Sweeney was a big loss, tore his ACL. Michael Quinlivan was unavailable with work, I think. Another huge loss. And
Robbie Kiley's retirement as well, I thought was huge.
They were hamstrung last year. Now I think Sweeney's back training with them, and that's a big plus for them.
Back in goal as well, which is big.
Yeah, but they're a team. They're similar to Clare, you know, in a county where hurling kind of presides more so than football. It's just hard to get much progress. They won the Munster Championship a few years ago, but that feels like 10 years ago now with where they're at. I think I mentioned earlier, like there is a potential pathway where they could get to a Munster final this year, but I don't know if they're going to have another 2020. I can't see that happening. I can't see.
Not against Kerry.
No, I think it's Kerry, Cork, Limerick, basically on the other side. And that's, if they get there, then they're into the All-Ireland Championship, and sure, you don't know what that could do for the morale in the squad. But I just don't, you know what, you would think they should be closer. And I don't know, Carlow, I can't see them, you know, I put Carlow Laois as 3-2 there, and I don't really, that could be interchangeable. Like Tipperary.
Yeah, Carlow have been on the development now with Neil Carew for a few years.
Yeah.
They really have, and he seemed ambitious right from the get-go. Laois, Justin McNulty as manager, what are you expecting from that? Laois are certainly going to demand high standards.
Yeah. It's hard to know with Laois. They're a bit kind of, like, obviously we're such a strong county, and then, you know, over the course of a decade or so started to go backwards and just haven't really progressed again or returned to that kind of standard. I would expect them to target promotion. I think that that's why I put them there. But I think like Tip, Carlow, Laois, that could be interchangeable, you know. Now I put Longford at number 1. Now they could, like, because they got relegated last year, I don't know what they're going to do in the league. They really need to target promotion. I'm putting them there more as kind of like, if they don't get promoted, that would be a big disappointment for them. They would have been very disappointed to get relegated last year after being in Division 3 for so long and having been closer to the other side, like promotion to Division 2 was more there in their conversation for the years preceding that. So that's why they really need to get back up. But I don't know, Division 4, when you're down there,
it can be hard to get
it can be quite sticky, you know, to get back up again. So that 8, like, I've no problem if people want to feel insulted with the selection, because it could very well be completely flipped in its head. It's a tough division to get back up from.
And weirdly, the division I'm feeling the least confident about is Division 1. Because as I said, like, Dublin might not try at all. Kerry might not try at all. Derry might try hard. Tyrone might smash it. Like, you literally never know.
Yeah.
That is what we're saying on the 23rd of January. 4 days out from the start of the Allianz League kicking off. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, and it's good to have the leagues back as well. So that's the official predictions, guys. Thank you very much to anybody who tuned into this episode. Enjoy the first round of the leagues, and we'll be here to review the action from the weekends and, of course, give a preview for the weekend following that as well. Keep in touch. Get all your reviews here on ancluiche, and until the next one, guys, take care.